Hey guys, welcome to JR's Junk Drawer. I'm JR, this is Boots, and over here is Dukina. Oh my god, I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but there is just hair everywhere right now. I need to brush you after this Boots. Oh god. Yeah, let's go ahead and get back to the episode. For our project today, we're going to be getting back into more of an advanced art style and walking through the process in a speed paint tutorial. It has been a while, but I'm looking forward to this. Our character choice comes from one of you in the comments section. Painting Apex Legends Wattson is a great idea, and it should be fun painting one of my 3 characters that I main. But I've postponed this painting project long enough. We'll be using Procreate for today's project, so let's go ahead, jump in, and get started. Good girl, Bootsy. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start today talking about rough sketches, the process of repeatedly throwing ideas at a page until one sticks. For me, I usually get sucked into one of my first 3 concepts, and then fail to fill a page with any other ideas, some of which might have been better. So, if you're the type to fill up an entire page with a multitude of sketches, that's probably a good thing. Now, there are an absolute ton of methods and techniques for rough sketching, and a lot of the little things change from artist to artist. But the core idea of a rough sketch is to get the concept that's in your head onto the canvas in front of you in its most basic, simplistic form. It does not need to be pretty. So stay loose, but be deliberate. Yes, I am paraphrasing Aaron Blaise with that, but it's true. Staying loose with the design gives you more freedom to make alterations as you progress. And by be deliberate, I mean, don't scribble down the design in front of you with the goal of reaching the next sketch. Instead, take the time and effort you need to convey the concept you're going for within the drawing in front of you before moving on. Skill, accuracy, and speed will all come with practice. So be patient with yourself when a design doesn't look right. Believe me, I've been there. Now, on screen, in the Wattson painting we're doing today, we've already moved past the initial rough sketch, and we're just about to wrap up the refinement sketch stage 2. So, let's talk about visualization. Something that's vital throughout an entire painting, from before pencil ever touches paper, all the way to the end of a project. It's essential to have a solid mental image of your scene. One saying that I've used for years: don't think of your canvas as a flat surface, but instead as a window into the world of your creation. It has textures, depth, and light sources that exist in 3 dimensions, and it is the job of the artist to convey that to the viewer. Even if all the details aren't there right away, you can plan ahead for things like contrast and lighting if you keep a rough idea of what will go where. Speaking of which, to talk more specifically on today's painting, we have 2 light sources to worry about. The sun coming from behind and above Wattson, placing her mostly in the shadow, and her electrical device that will provide a strong upglow. To balance the contrast of these 2 light sources, notice how I've set up the background. Right behind Wattson, we have a barricade that will provide a dark backdrop for all that uplighting coming from the device. And above, where we've used a darker color palette for Wattson, we have an open sky and what will be a well-lit environment. It all has contrast planned into the design, because if you can have a good balance to your contrast, you have the makings of an excellent painting. Now, we're not quite there yet. By the end, I'm planning on the background environment being much brighter and the barricade being much darker. And I'll find a balance for Wattson somewhere in between the 2. For all the orange material Wattson has around her jacket, I've been searching Google for various cold weather gear and insulating jackets for references, as well as, of course, Wattson references herself. Still, for the blue textures, I want to try something different, but I'm going to need a little help from one of my co-stars. Hey, Dukina, know the phrase, "ain't no skin off my back"? Well, technically it's not my back. Now, if I'm being real with all of you in the audience, this is only a tiny bit of skin from the last time Dukina shed, but I knew it would make a perfect texture for a new brush. So, first step, turning this into that. Let's start by removing all the unnecessary textures. The lasso tool is ideally suited for this picture to quickly outline the shape and delete everything outside of the scales. Next, we need to increase the contrast with an adjustment called curves. You're going to want to grab the top right and bottom left points and drag them more towards the center. This will make the light colors brighter and the dark colors darker. The next part varies depending on the program you're using, but Procreate will fill brighter pixels with paint and darker pixels will become transparent. So, you can see on screen, I've now inverted our texture's colors from what they were a minute ago to accommodate how Procreate handles a brush. At this point, I'm going to use an eraser to soften the edges around our texture to flow better once we've finished our brush. Now, brush settings can be complicated, and more than I really want to deep dive into during a video that's not about how to make a brush. I play with and repeatedly test settings for 20 minutes or so. Ultimately, if you like this brush, it will be available for download over on my Gumroad for free. If you do use the brush, tag me in the results. I'd love to see what you all do with the pattern. Now, actually using the brush, I've set the layer to multiply. And like with a lot of things in advanced painting, this texture is more than just a quick pass with a single brush. To really push the design, you need more layers that add highlights and shadows and variations in the pattern. The underlying depth comes from layers we already had before we added the texture. But it's the extra step of coming back in with a new layer to speckle in highlights where I feel edges and ridges could catch the light that accentuates the bends and folds in the material. I also add some cracks to what's quickly becoming a very leathery looking material, putting in wear and tear, as well as variations in the pattern. This helps the finished product to look more detailed. And with minimal alterations to these initial steps, I repeat this design wherever I feel it should reappear on the outfit. At this point, I'm pretty happy with the design, but that doesn't mean that there's no room for improvement. I think we're ready to take our first pass on final touches. I start this process by zooming out. This way I gain a bird's eye view of the painting, allowing me to spot flaws, alterations, and overall, find room for improvement more easily. First thing I noticed was that our shadows could be darker. So I make a new layer, set its blending mode to multiply, and paint bucket a medium blue across the entire canvas. I picked blue because blue is the dominant color in this painting. The sky is blue, our character features a lot of blue in her design, and most importantly, our secondary light source is emitting blue light. I call this atmospheric color, and it's the color that your shadow should hue towards in a given setting. Notice how I'm going around the painting and erasing this layer wherever light directly falls. A lot of the final touches stage comes down to making sure the focal points stand out, and most of that is determined by accurately balancing the lighting and using that lighting to enhance the focal points. Now you do have a little wiggle room for where you put your highlights and shadows. Even with a placed light source, there's still a little bit of fudge room there. But for the most part, you are locked into where you placed your light sources earlier in the painting. That's why it's crucial to think about your lighting angles early in the painting process. Even if you only get around to enhancing your lighting later, like with my art style, planning where your light will fall early on in a painting will mean you run into fewer problems at a later stage. Next, I'm going to add some visible light rays coming from Wattson's device. I've used this effect in a variety of situations, although not every painting requires it. So, again, I make a new layer, and I set its blending mode to screen this time. Screen is an excellent effect to keep in mind for any light source that you want to cast an ashy look over other objects in the scene. In real life, this is caused by tiny particulates catching the light in midair. So the smokier, foggier, or dustier the environment you're in, the more you'll see this effect. Picture the scene of a dusty old attic with a window. That window would have this same effect, only with a warmer color to the light. This effect also combos well when you paint larger particles in the air, but we'll get to that a little bit later. For now, I want to power up the electrical arcing coming from the device. Right now, I'm selecting the layer that this pattern already exists on, and we're going to add to it. Interestingly enough, despite this being a lighting effect, I'm not using a layer blending mode this time. Now that's mainly just because the blending mode this time is already built into the brush. Yeah, blending modes are everywhere in my paintings. Absolutely surrounded. Having color dodge built into the brush, rather than the layer, does provide a different effect that I prefer in this case. Next, we're going to add an effect I learned during the Clyde and the Magic Toast series. I'm starting with yet another layer above everything else. You're going to gotta get used to that. I'm constantly making new layers with new blending modes. But I'm going to set the layer to overlay this time. Overlay is a great blending mode for altering the hue of the underlying painting, but still preserving the ability to lighten or darken your colors. A little bit of sea green mixed into the light coming from the device, and some other colors scattered around, ranging from a pink purple to orange and yellow, brightening up the background. I found that adding even a small amount of hue variation across an image can really bump up the vibrance to a whole other level. We're actually getting close to the end of the final touches stage. We only have 2 major steps left. Let's start with Chromatic Aberration. That's a mouthful. This is visually a minimal change, but I like what it adds to the finished results for many of my paintings. Notice the small trim lines of blue, red, and green around the edges on the image on the right. That's chromatic aberration, and I know of 2 ways in Procreate to get that look. The first way is manual, with a new layer at the top set to a blending mode of hard light and an opacity somewhere around 12%. Scribble in small lines of like pure red, green, and blue along the edges within the painting. To keep the color temperatures looking right, I like to use red and green towards my light sources and shift more towards using blue and green for when I'm working in the shadows. Doing it this way takes some time, which brings me to option 2. Procreate has a built-in chromatic aberration filter, and it does an outstanding job, but it does have drawbacks. First off, of course, you don't get that manual control over the individual lines. But more detrimentally, the effect needs to be on a single layer to work, at least in Procreate, and that flattening your painting limits your painting options moving forward. Personally, I prefer to add this effect manually, but give it a shot for yourself and see what you can come up with. Part of final touches is going around the image and touching things up, which means making fixes. Here I noticed that I completely forgot to paint the rest of the glove earlier, so let's go ahead and finish that before I move on. Okay, we are like 95% done with this painting now. Time to add the particles I talked about earlier. We're going to go around the image on a new layer. Yes, another new layer. Kind of running out of them at this point, literally. We're going to use a small particle brush of mine and add tiny little speckles that congregate primarily in the light rays. Also, still part of adding particles, we're going to add a handful of leaves floating down from the sky. I think that is looking pretty good. I'm going to make one last pass to fix up any remaining issues I spot, and then I'm all done. Wow, I am thrilled with the results here. Not only did the painting turn out amazing here, but we also got a chance to try out some new tricks too. I hope that my explanations were adequate. But comment down below if there was anything you'd like me to go over in more detail, and I'll do my best to answer any follow-up questions. I'm also starting the process of featuring more of your comments in future speed paints. That way I can use a visual example to help answer questions. Also, down in the comments, let me know who's your favorite Apex Legends character. My 3 mains are Caustic, Mirage, and Wattson. Although admittedly, after they've nerfed my boy Caustic, I've found myself playing a lot more Mirage and Wattson. Dukina, you're in my hair. Seriously? You're really comfy up there, aren't you, girl? Oh, well. But that is going to be all for today. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like and subscribe as it lets me know that you want to see more content like this. You can also hit that bell icon to get notified of future episodes. Dukina, do you mind? Go. That's gonna be all for today. Thank you all for joining me. Hope to see you next time. Cheap pooping. At least you waited till you were off my head. Thanks for watching. I hope to see you guys next time. Oh my God. I gotta go get some paper towels now. Oh God, it's everywhere. And it smells so bad.
Wax on, wax off. Don't forget to breathe. Very important. Wax on, wax off. Wax on.